rely wholeheartedly on archiving messages in cyberspace. Now you can, they save records. I understand all of that, but I don't feel cyberspace reliably archives communications as well as the paper variety.
Yeah, even birthday and Christmas cards with a little note on them, when you see it, that is something the person did with their own hands.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a personal link there. Another thing that cyberspace lacks, a significant lack in my opinion, is that you cannot wrap a cyberspace message in beautiful colored paper and give it as a gift.
Oh yes.
Yeah, impossible.
Impossible.
So, and another disadvantage is a cyberspace message can't look down on you from a volume on the shelf in your library and help you recall what is the message held between the covers. So I'm a big advocate in writing in black and white on paper. And you can publish it electronically, that's fine, that's very doable now. But for safekeeping and for those who come after us, I want my story to be encased in a volume with a protective cover. And so that's the road that I have chosen to take.
When I was growing up, it was during World War II, and most of the correspondence obviously had to go letters from far, far, and far away, and some of them, the wife would get them, and there would be sections of the sentence that we blacked out with black because
by the censor.
By the censor, because, and I've often wondered, when you look at that and you see the censored, and it was your grandfather or something like that, and you know that something was censored and they've been far away for years, your imagination can add anything to that little section you want, and it's so priceless.
Yes, it is indeed. Well, of course, I remember World War II. I can tell you that my high school graduating class was the first class, this is true, the first class from which young men were drafted if they passed their 18th birthday before commencement day. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
If they turned 18 before graduation day, they had to go off to war.
Miss graduation.
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, wow.
And at another memory of that age, since you've mentioned it, at our high school, at our senior prom, there was a piece of paper. This is interesting. I hadn't thought of this before, but there was a piece of stationery with an envelope with the address of a serviceman on the envelope. And while we were waiting for our banquet to be served, we were to write to this serviceman so he'd have a piece of personal mail coming to him.
And that's not cyber, that's real handwriting.
Yeah.
And saying something important.
So we all did. And I met the serviceman later, many years later actually, when I was in college, and I realized I didn't know him, of course, he was the one I'd written to. Well, a lot has changed. Our attitudes have changed and so on. But what remains is our unique stories.
Oh, yes.
And I can't impress on your viewers enough the importance of putting that down, getting it down. Now,
you're my new best friend.
I hope so. one can't have too many friends. The idea of passing that on to people who of course you will never meet, but it will be absolutely priceless to them. For everything else, there's MasterCard. The personal message is what we should pass on from ourselves to whoever is interested in it.
I know my mother had a lot of adventures that never were put on paper. My daughter talked to her and put some down, but I know just what you mean. And my children and grandchildren, they're missing all of this.
Yep.
Well, you were talking about selling cream. The writing it down so they understand is like the cream. The stories you hear is like the milk, but the cream is
rises, rises up to the front. That's exactly right.
We got about 5 more minutes left.
Okay, well, we can do that. You know, you've got a storyteller here today, Jerry, and storytellers love their craft.
Oh, yes.
They love to tell stories. So I have more to tell.
One thing that I'm glad that we're doing today, we're going to go into your second writing. You're talking about the
spoon holder.
Spoon holder, and I'm anxious to come up to that one as well, because when we were talking before, you were talking about that, and I was amazed because, well, some of us old folks remember something on the table where, you know, it wasn't an official spoon holder, but you just had some silverware there just when you needed it, you know.
Well, we called it a spoon holder. The collectors nowadays call them spooners.
Oh.
But I stick with the old name, and what I have included in my upcoming book, excuse me, is a collection of mismatched stories. They don't follow any specific order, but it's a collection of stories from my life that for some reason have touched me. And it seemed that the title of a spoon holder fit, because we had the mismatched spoons in the spoon holder in the center of the table. When you set a table, you put a plate down and a knife and a fork, but rarely a teaspoon.
Oh.
Now, I've written an essay on the spoon holder telling about a little bit about the reason for it, and but I think it was because people didn't have matching silverware at that time.
Oh yeah, that's
and so this it seemed inappropriate that a group of mismatched stories would belong in a spoon holder. Well, since we're running out of time, I'd like to read a little bit.
Okay.
I guess about...
Oh, we got about 1 minute left. Maybe we'll have to do that into the next...
All right, okay. Well, this will go in a minute. These small spoonfuls of stories that I will read today from my spoon holder could have been written by anyone, because we all, in a sense, measure out our lives in coffee spoons. Mine will differ from anyone else's because they are uniquely my own. They are the small, indelible samples of my life, given words and put on paper to leave behind, so anyone in the future can know who I was. I'm speaking now to the readers or to the viewers, when you begin collecting your own coffee spoons of your life, I hope you will find many waiting there in your own memory and have a spoon holder to hold them.
Wow, great.
That means a book.
Oh, yeah.
A book with a cover.
A book with a cover. Even if you put it under the mattress, it's there, and it's your story. Okay,
exactly.
So we gotta quit for today, for right now. And I know you'll be back. Probably be a show in a couple weeks or so. It won't show one right after the other.
I'd be delighted. I'd be delighted.
So why don't we call it quits for now, and we'll come back for the next one. This is Jerry Vasey and Isla Mae Lund. We're closing off this section of I Can't Write Right, and I guess we'll be running clear in a second or two. So thanks again for watching our show, and we'll be looking forward to having you watch the next one. If you know of any authors that I can bring on the show, I would very much appreciate that. Thank you very much. My name is Jerry Vasey, and the show is I Can't Write Right. It's been a couple of weeks now since we've seen you on TV. Have you started your story yet, and how far have you gone? I have Isla Mae Lund, and she's writing a story. She's written other stories, but the story is coming up. She's writing a book, right?
Oh, yes.
And it's called The Spoon Holder. And where did you get the inspiration to write this book?
Well, actually, if I go back far enough, I can claim that the inspiration really started at supper time in my family home when I was a child.
Oh.
And may I read a little excerpt from this? Okay, this tells it better than I could do otherwise. Supper time was always a great together time in our family, a welcome respite for grown-ups after their long days of back-breaking farm labor. For me, the youngest in the family, it was like a party. Everyone was at the table. Between forkfuls of hearty food, stories peppered this mellow lamplit time after daylight had given way to the unlit rural dark countryside and barn lanterns had been retired to the nails beside the kitchen door, ready for the pre-dawn darkness of morning when they'd again light the way until sunlight intervened. After work was finally done, this was our one reliable chance for sharing the challenging, often curious occurrences of the day. Quirks of nature, unusual feats of strength, instant repairs in the field with no more than baling wire to work with, or sometimes managing a horse with an attitude. It was a cozy time, congenial, a time for laughter and gentle ribbing, when every family member was present and I listened and laughed at their stories that I barely understood, because I was a part of this wonderful storytelling family circle.
Wow.
So that's it, Jerry. I wasn't planning to write then. I was just sitting in a high chair. But that was the culture from which I came. It was a storytelling culture. Now, I'm descended from Norwegian immigrants. I'm the daughter of an immigrant mother and the daughter of a first-generation American-born father of immigrant parents. Now, those people in the cold Nordic countries with the long Arctic winters when the sun barely showed a few moments of itself for weeks at a time, if they hadn't told stories, I think the Nordics would have become a lost race because they would have killed each other by the end of the winter. Now, my background is from northern Iowa, and northern Iowa had its share of cold winters too. We were snowbound for many, many days frequently during the winter. Nobody had snow blowers then. And a lane that was 1/4 of a mile long, you did not clean with a shovel, you know, a single shovel at a time. So I come from that type of culture, and now that I am interested in writing, of course, I've always been interested in writing, but now that I am writing my own stories, I think back on that supper time. That was our entertainment. All we had in the Depression age was each other. We had each other. Mm-hmm. And if you had any entertainment, you made your own. We sang a lot. We hummed at our work. We taught ourselves to play simple instruments, you know, like the mouth organ.
Oh, yeah.
Violins, accordions. And when I decided to put these stories into a collection, I chose the story of the spoon holder, the title of the spoon holder, because in the center of that supper time table was this little vessel that held a whole mixture of teaspoons. So if anyone needed it, you know, anyone needed a spoonful to pick up the last bit of gravy or some relish, it was right there.
Now, in your book, you're taking individual stories that you remember,
yeah,
and they're just a mixture, a potpourri.
Yeah, they're in no chronological order.